My name is Pat Byrne, and I'm based in Brazil. Discussing with me is Khalid Bhatti from Pakistan. And we are part of a new project called People's BRICS. Our project brings together political, trade union, and community activists across the world who welcome BRICS as a potential alternative to the old neo-imperialist order. Within this rapidly developing movement, our project will be campaigning for practical policies within BRICS that seek to benefit working people in all aspects of their lives. In this, our first episode on YouTube, we're going to review the BRICS annual summit that has just finished in Kazan in Russia.
I will start from the question, what is BRICS? Many people knows that what BRICS is, but some might not. So let's begin by very briefly explaining what BRICS is and how it developed. Which countries set up the BRICS? Originally, Brazil, Russia, India, and China met informally in 2006, and it was called BRIC. Its first formal meeting was held in 2009. Then in 2013, South Africa joined, and its name was extended to BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In January 2024, when 4 new members joined, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates, also known as UAE. With these members, BRICS is now sometimes called BRICS Plus.
Okay, so now let's look at what happened at the 16th BRICS Summit that has just finished in Russia. The BRICS Summit was attended by delegations from 35 countries. As such, it is by far the biggest gathering in its history. For such an important international gathering, the Western powers were noticeable by their absence. They were simply not invited. Of course, the BRICS maintain that it's not against the West, but this is mainly a matter of presentation. Clearly, there's a major rift between the neo-imperialist powers of the G7 and the rest of the world. The richer countries of the West may no longer have the trappings of empire and the colonies that went with them, but they've been able to continue ruling the world by other means. And the BRICS has been formed to bring this situation to an end. Given that BRICS is a new institution in its early stages of development, it is still a relatively vulnerable movement, and it faces a long-established and powerful enemy. In such a situation, it makes perfect sense for the BRICS to play down its intentions and ambitions. Of course, this will change in the future as the BRICS grows stronger and comes to represent the majority of nations in the world.
This low-profile approach is also reflected in the moderation of its language. That means that often we have to read between the lines to properly understand the very different kind of world that the BRICS is trying to achieve. For example, we can see the thinking of the BRICS members in the following statement that was part of the final document of the summit. The statement contains a number of key aims and values that may seem obvious and beyond dispute, especially when uttered by those Western leaders who have no intention of putting them into practice, but their real meaning have dramatic and long-term implications. The statement says, we reaffirm our commitment to the BRICS spirit of mutual respect and understanding, sovereign equality, solidarity, democracy, openness, inclusiveness, collaboration, and consensus. As we build upon 16 years of BRICS summits, we further commit ourselves to strengthen cooperation in the expanded BRICS under 3 pillars of political and security, economic and financial, cultural and people-to-people cooperation, and to enhancing our strategic partnership for the benefit of our people through the promotion of peace, a more representative, fairer international order, a reinvigorated and reformed multilateral system, sustainable development, and inclusive growth.
Now, what was the special significance of holding this summit in Russia? Well, the BRICS, each year between the BRICS members, the chairmanship rotates. And this year, 2024, it rotated to Russia. So that was why the summit was held in Russia. But it obviously took place against particular circumstances. The first of all was because of the Ukraine war. The war in Ukraine, which has been going on now for 2.5 years, has caused a massive conflict between Russia and G7 nations. Now, the G7 nations maintain that because of the war, that Russia has been isolated, that Russia doesn't have any friends in the world. Well, I think that the huge turnout at this summit has put a lie to this and has shown that Russia is far from being isolated. Russia has many supporters around the world. Another thing was the whole question of the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant that's been issued against Putin. Now, we don't have space to go into the circumstances of this arrest warrant, except to say that it's not come as a result of serious investigation by the ICC. The conditions on which the arrest warrant were issued and the evidence that's been gathered to justify it are very spurious. Even the person who, in America, who came forward with the so-called evidence against Putin, has been forced to admit that his evidence does not have much solidity. The Ukraine war itself, no matter what one thinks about the causes of the war, which we don't have space to go into here, is obviously going very, very badly for NATO and the West. And the sanctions that were applied against Russia, the economic sanctions, following the outbreak of the war that have been imposed by the West, have clearly failed. So that's we're seeing that the Russian economy is growing very rapidly at 3.5% and is forecast to grow by 4% next year. So, and in fact, the whole Ukraine war has led to a further weakening of the West, not just economically, but militarily too.
The summit got off to a good start with the announcement that India and China had agreed a significant step towards settling their border disputes. It was also announced that Indian Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi would meet during the summit, the first meeting for some years.
This also brings us on to a criticism that's been made of the BRICS, which is that it includes countries which have reactionary governments. What we need to consider here is that no matter the nature of any particular government of the poorer countries, their populations desperately need development and economic growth. And this is the common goal of all the BRICS members. Moreover, we should not look at these countries in a static way. They are all undergoing a process of change, and this change can be in a progressive direction if they're able to achieve peace and prosperity in the context of a fairer and more just world order. Indeed, the need for peace is a key priority for the BRICS. As such, the BRICS is becoming a forum where disputes can be discussed and settled. An example of this is not only the meeting between India and China, but it's also in the situation in Syria. Putin was able to meet President Erdogan from Turkey to try to come to a resolution of the civil war in Syria. All this ties in with China's global security initiative, which is seeking to combine prosperity and peace between countries in the developing world. After all, if you have war, then nothing can move forward economically and prosperity cannot be achieved.
It was announced that the BRICS members now represent 36.7% of the global GDP in terms of purchasing power parity, while the share of the G7 countries is only 30%. Moreover, it was noted that BRICS countries are growing faster than the global average of at around 3.8% in 2024 and 25. When you look only at the G7 countries, both Europe and Japan are effectively in recession. Even in the United States, which is claiming to be growing by 3%, it is likely that this figure will be revised downwards in due course. There seems to be a major slump approaching. The Western countries are largely disindustrialized and ever deeper in debt, with living standards falling and infrastructure falling apart.
A number of commentators have dismissed the BRICS as just an economic bloc, but they forget that its economic strength has always been the underlying basis of geopolitical power, military power, etc. It's the past economic weakness of the peoples of Africa, Latin America, and Asia that has allowed them to be colonized and exploited. It is to end this inequality of wealth and power that the BRICS has been formed. And it is why the BRICS are mainly focusing on economic questions and seeking to integrate their economic development efforts. Indeed, This drive for economic integration is what marks the BRICS out from all the previous efforts of the developing world to overcome its poverty and weakness. For example, the attempt to use the United Nations to this end has so far clearly failed, similarly with the non-aligned movement that was created in the 1950s. The economic power of the neo-imperialist countries in the G7 has allowed them to ignore the wishes and needs of the global majority for centuries. With only 10% of the world's population, they believe they have the right to rule over the rest of us. And when it comes to international relations, all the talk of democracy by the West conveniently disappears.
In this summit in Kazan, many decisions were made. The first key decision of this BRICS summit was how to expand the membership of BRICS. This is really a relatively difficult subject given the experience since the last summit in South Africa, which agreed to invite 6 countries to join. As it happens, 2 of the 6 have not yet joined. The first one was Argentina, where elections were held a few months after the BRICS invitation was sent. An extreme right-wing pro-US government was elected, which immediately and very publicly refused the invitation. Ironically, in the following year, the new Argentinian government has not received any special help from America. They are beginning to discover that the United States does not significantly help its allies economically, but only offers them weapons. And now Argentina is having to try to establish good relations with China, which is the only country willing or able to help them. The second nation who has not yet responded to the invitation to join BRICS is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has traditionally been a key ally of the United States and has come under intense pressure from them not to join the BRICS bloc. The decision so far of Saudis not to take up the BRICS invitation is perhaps understandable in the context of what is happening in Palestine and in the Middle East. As such, BRICS is probably not a top priority for the Saudis right now, and they may be holding back until the outcome of the conflict becomes much clearer. If the Israelis and the US emerge from the current conflict stronger, then the Saudis may feel the need to stick with the US. On the other hand, if Israel and US become weakened, this might convince the Saudis to get off the fence.
Then there is a category of potential BRICS members who are approaching the question of membership in something of a cynical and transactional manner. These include countries like Turkey, who want to play the West off against BRICS by being a member of both sides. Thus, Turkey is trying to get the best of both worlds by remaining in NATO and its customs-free arrangement with the European Union, while applying to join the BRICS at the same time. More broadly, there are many countries who are attracted by the BRICS, but are unsure if they want to fully commit to it, or to take the heat from the West, who will try to stir up domestic trouble for them over the issue. Joining the BRICS is not a simple decision to be made by many countries because they risk causing offense to the West and receiving punitive measures from them. To cater for these various situations, the BRICS have sensibly agreed to create an interim stage of membership, which they're calling a partner state. In doing so, they have copied the Shanghai Cooperation Organization system. This will allow many countries to associate themselves with BRICS and participate in its activities without having to go all the way and become full members. This halfway house can involve many more countries in the various BRICS initiatives and build up relationships within the BRICS, which over time will likely lead to full membership.
BRICS have open consultation with 13 countries to allow them to become partner states. These new potential partner states include Turkey, Indonesia, Algeria, Belarus, Cuba, Bolivia, Malaysia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Thailand, Vietnam, Nigeria, and Uganda. There are estimated to be another 33 countries who have expressed an interest in joining the BRICS.
Now let's look at the background to how BRICS developed so that we can understand what the BRICS is trying to achieve. In the period after the Second World War, the many countries that were colonies of the various European empires successfully sought to gain their independence. Undoubtedly, this was a major step forward, but it didn't go far enough. using a combination of bribery and coercion, the old imperial powers, such as the United States, Britain, France, Germany, and so on, have sought to install and control the leaders of the poorer countries to do their bidding. So although they had formal independence, they never had economic independence. So this has included the old neo-imperial powers getting the poorer countries to give them favorable prices and concessions to Western multinationals and allowing these multinationals to exploit their cheap labor and raw materials. Thus, this allowed them to control these countries and keep them poor. And where a leader of a community tried to resist the Western governments, these governments have usually resorted to regime change operations, assassinations, stirring up internal conflicts, and even on some occasions to invasion. In the economic arena, former imperialist nations have also been able to maintain their dominance through the use of global bodies such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, and so on, as well as using the money markets, banks, multiplicity of financial institutions to keep these countries in debt. Utilizing these structures, the United States in particular has turned in the last 30 years to the use of economic sanctions against any country, organization, or individual who refuses to toe the line. And the use of all these methods has allowed the former imperialist nations to maintain their economic, political, and military domination, and to extend it to even more countries across the world. Thus, we have ended up with a neo-imperialist and neo-colonialist world order. Imperialism and colonialism, but in a new, more disguised form. This new world order is largely controlled by the United States, Europe, and Japan, countries that are represented by the G7.
The only exception to this new imperialist world order were to be found in the Soviet bloc and China, and in a few smaller countries around the world, such as Cuba, Vietnam, and others. Then the collapse of Soviet bloc from 1989 to 1991 left the United States as the only superpower in the world, a superpower that set out to be completely dominant the planet and make every country in its own image. However, contrary to the confident expectations of the US, its triumph was all too short-lived. China, learning important lessons from its own mistakes and those of the Soviet Union, was able to create an economic miracle that has modernized and industrialized its society, and in doing so, lifted 1 billion of its people out of poverty. China, from being one of the poorest nations, have risen to become the world's largest economy in just a few decades. This success has inspired poorer countries around the world to emulate its success, a success that China has been striving to assist through its Belt and Road Initiative.
At the same time, we've seen a series of newly emerging economies appearing onto the world scene as increasingly important economic actors. These include countries such as India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Turkey, the Gulf countries, Nigeria, South Africa, Argentina, Chile, and Mexico. Added to this, we have also seen the revival of the Russian Federation, which also sees itself as a developing country. Now, this combination of China, Russia, India, and the other newly emerging economies, and along with the remaining countries of the developing world, are the driving force behind the rise of the BRICS. Together, they're seeking to create a fairer world order that will allow them to end poverty and achieve prosperity. To this end, the current and future members of BRICS are looking to industrialize their societies. Accordingly, the BRICS has launched, in its summit in Russia, a partnership for the new industrial revolution. This is a guiding platform to help industrialize BRICS members using the latest technologies. To achieve this industrialization, the BRICS understands that there is a need to coordinate the economic activities of its members and thus gain advantages of scale. And to put this into practice, the BRICS is creating a whole layer of platforms and coordinating mechanism. Let's outline some of the detailed decisions made at the summit in Russia.
The 35-page long Kazan Declaration that was agreed at this year's summit is the most detailed and ambitious yet since the BRICS was formed 15 years ago. This year's BRICS, under the chairmanship of Russia, has been focusing for obvious reasons on the problems of the dominance of dollar and the issue of US sanctions. 300 billion of Russian financial reserves have been frozen, and the interest on this fund is being utilized by the Western countries to subsidize the war in Ukraine. A quotation from the final BRICS summit statement said, "We are deeply concerned about the disruptive effect of unlawful, unilateral, coercive measures, including illegal sanctions on the world economy, international trade, and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals." A BRICS payment task force is operating and developing a series of payment systems that will enable BRICS members and their population to avoid having to use the US dollar for international transactions and the use of local currencies in financial transactions between BRICS countries and their trading partners. A series of systems are currently in preparation to deliver faster, lower cost, more efficient, transparent, safe, and inclusive cross-border payment systems. These include BRICS cross-border payment initiatives, BRICS Bridge to allow countries to conduct cross-border settlement using digital platforms run by their central banks, BRICS Pay, an online cash nil commission payment system for businesses and customers to purchase products throughout the BRICS trading area.
Also included is the creation of a BRICS trading system. And this is to include a series of exchanges to stabilize and raise prices of commodities, establish confidential price discovery for BRICS members, help protect national markets from adverse external interference, and reduce speculation or attempts to create artificial shortages. We have already seen the huge success of OPEC, which has allowed the oil-producing countries to secure from the richer countries a much larger share of the profits of their energy resources. By working together, the other raw material producers in the developing world are looking to achieve similar levels of success. In this way, they can overcome their atomization, which the neo-imperialist powers have used to gain advantage and lower prices. So these proposed commodity exchanges include a grain exchange, a minerals exchange, plus a BRICS geological platform sharing research and technology, and a metals exchange, which also includes a BRICS platform for precious metals. Now, the BRICS is also combating protectionism. In contrast to the growing protectionism in Europe and North America, the BRICS members are seeking to reduce tariffs and barriers to trade between the developing countries and the BRICS members themselves. More widely, BRICS is campaigning to reform the World Trade Organization, which at present is effectively suspended following the decision in 2019 by the United States to stop nominating judges to the WTO arbitration panels. There's also a BRICS Bank, the New Development Bank, which they're seeking to expand by including more developing countries, increasing its capital lending, and raise the proportion of transactions made in local currencies. As part of this is a BRICS investment platform that's been created to make applications for loans easier and more transparent. And this will be accompanied by a new BRICS Investment Arbitration Center in order to improve the protection of mutual investments and develop a convention for settling disputes.
BRICS Summit in Russia also decided creation of a transportation and logistics group, reviewing transport routes, creating an online communications platform for the transport sector, and establishing a reinsurance pool. The creation of an energy group, creation of a healthcare group, including specialist groups on vaccines, public health, tuberculosis, and nuclear medicines. Creation of a science and technology group, including a BRICS Alliance for Artificial Intelligence.
Fantastic.
BRICS World Trade Organization group in order to coordinate a common position within the WTO. The BRICS Contact Group for Climate and Sustainable Development. A BRICS Special Economic Zones liaison group to coordinate the 2,500 special economic areas within the group. BRICS Sports and Culture.
So we've looked at some of the detailed proposals that were included in the declaration, but there were also, the summit addressed some of the major issues that happen in the world, and in particular the problems that are happening in the Middle East. And the Kazan Declaration condemned Israel's brutal actions against the Palestinians and Lebanon, and called for an immediate ceasefire in the region. It also included recognition of the Palestinian state and concrete steps towards a two-state solution. As an indication of the BRICS solidarity with the Palestinians, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, was invited to and was present at the BRICS summit. Also included in the Kazan Declaration were calls for democratization of the United Nations, not just in the membership of the Security Council, but in the makeup of its secretariat and its operation as a whole. And a similar approach were included proposals by the BRICS to democratize the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund.
BRICS future. There are many questions around the future of BRICS. In the next few months, Russia, as the chair of the BRICS, until the end of the year, will consult with the new potential partner states. More broadly, the BRICS Plus outreach group will liaise with the other global majority countries. From January next year, the chair of BRICS will pass to Brazil. According to the next BRICS summit, its 17th summit will be held in Brazil.
All right, so let's see what conclusions we can draw from looking at what's happened in Kazan in Russia for the 2024 BRICS summit. First of all, it's obvious that the BRICS is getting stronger, as we can see by the big turnout at the BRICS, with 36 heads of state in attendance. We can also see from the decision of the summit that BRICS is no longer just a platform for vague diplomatic statements, but is seriously getting down to coordinating its members' economies. The creation of the BRICS trading system, along with a series of commodity exchanges, will have a profound impact on international trade and will sideline the traditional commodity exchanges that are located in the US and the UK, which had such importance and power within the international trading economy. This is already having a serious effect on US agriculture and metals trading. There was not much commentary from the Western media about it. In fact, in some countries, there was more coverage of the IMF and World Bank summit that was being held at the same time. This lack of coverage by the Western media was clearly not accidental. While the neo-imperialist countries in the G7 are very worried at the growing strength of BRICS, they do not yet know how to respond to it or its arguments. At this point, they are seeking to publicly ignore BRICS, while strenuously campaigning against it behind the scenes. Inevitably, this approach will turn into public hostility as the BRICS grow stronger and more effective. And finally, they will have to negotiate with the BRICS and come to terms with it. Meanwhile, there are no immediate plans to create an alternative currency to the dollar. Despite this, the creation of various systems for financial payments in local currencies between the BRICS countries and other methods is proceeding apace and can only reduce transaction costs and accelerate the decline of the dollar. Already, the amount of international trade being conducted in dollars and the amount of dollars being held in central banks' reserves is falling rapidly. Whatever happens to the reforms proposed by the BRICS to the IMF and the World Bank, the commitment of the BRICS countries towards a new development bank expressed in this summit should in time reduce the dependence of the developing world on the Western financial institutions which have held them back for decades. The coordination of the economies of the rapidly growing number of BRICS countries and their partner states should provide a strong basis for existing and future BRICS and Belt and Road Initiative projects. The initiation and operation of these projects is something that our People's BRICS project will be focusing on in future programs. Our People's BRICS project will be producing regular weekly programs on YouTube and other platforms. These programs will bring detailed news about the activities of BRICS on the ground and evaluate how well they are succeeding in delivering the goals and value of BRICS. In doing so, we'll be linking up with grassroots campaigns across the world. If you like what we're doing and the information we're providing, please subscribe to our channel and like the video. If you would like to receive more information or join our project, please contact us by email at peoplesbrics@mail.com. Thank you very much for watching our program.
Thanks very much for watching the program.